Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining me today in the conference room. My name is Lloyd Adkins, and I'm going to be going over the cybersecurity risk assessment. I represent the United States of America and the federal government, and please hold all questions to the end, as your questions may be answered throughout this briefing. The agenda for today, we are going to go over the attack and what happened, current measures that we have in place, authentication, authorizations, as well as access controls, weaknesses in security, people, technology, and policy, attack vectors, the vulnerability matrix, and the recovery of the information. So going over the attack recap. An independent secure communication network was set up by each nation prior to the start of the summit. Every nation that is here has set up this communication network themselves. The United Kingdom, the host nation, has detected an exfiltration in the IDS, or intrusion detection system. This notification was put out at 3 a.m. that an attack has occurred, putting each nation here at the summit at severe risk for leaked information. It is believed that someone within the summit is involved with this attack. Current authentication measures that we are using right now. Currently, we are using the multi-factor authentication, sometimes referred to as the two-factor authentication or 2FA. It is a security enhancement that allows you to present two pieces of evidence, your credentials, when logging into a system. Now, this could be any two pieces of information. This could be username, password, this could be biometrics, this could be pretty much anything that tells us who you are and gives you access to the account. Now, what this does is this creates a defense layer, thus making it more difficult for anyone without authorization to the information that resides within to gain access and connect with other individuals. Going on, knowledge factors. A knowledge factor is something you know, as stated before, a username or a password. Possession factor. This is something like a smart card or a security token that could be used to prove who you are. Inherence factors. These are your biometrics. These are your characteristics such as voice patterns, your iris, your fingerprints. Anything that can tell the system who you are in any way, shape, or form. Current authorizations. This should not be confused with authentication, however, but it should and very often is paired with it. Authorization is having the right or permission that is granted to a system entity to access a system resource. There are several types of authorization. No authorization is the first type. This type of authorization means you do not have access. It's pretty self-explanatory. There is no access to the pertinent information that may lie within the database. Layer 3 filtering. This filters packets by determining a user's access to information through the access control list. This allows people to gain access to the information only if they are on the access control list. Access control. Mandatory access control gives permission to view information only to those that have been predetermined through levels of security. Another way to control the levels of security and what access you have is through the Common Access Card, or the CAC card. This is given to all federal government employees, has all their personal information on it, and as well as what level of security they can access information to. Now, the levels of security range from confidential to secret, top secret, secret compartmental information, and so on. Role-based access control gives access based on job titles or predetermination. So depending on what kind of job you have could also depend on what kind of access or security level you need. Now, all 5 members of the United States cybersecurity team have predetermined access to files for all the summit meetings. Weaknesses in summit security. There are usually 3 weaknesses that any cybersecurity breach can show us. These 3 are people, technology, and policy. And we're going to go over all 3. Weakness in summit security: people. Cybercriminals, being the number one, are individuals or teams that use technology for deviant acts. They go out in order to cause trouble, in order to rob people, so on and so forth. Enemy nations: China, Iran, and Russia all have a cybercriminal history against the United States. They pose an imminent threat daily to cybersecurity. Insider threats. An insider threat is a disgruntled past employee that poses a very true threat to the safety and security of the proper policies of the company. Now, if these policies are not followed, of course, then that's when safety is a concern. Weaknesses in security technology. First thing we're going to talk about is logic bombs. A logic bomb uses a set of instructions that once the instructions have been met, the program only takes a certain amount of time before it goes. A phishing attack is a cybercrime tactic in which the target is contacted via email, telephone, or text message by someone posing as a legitimate institution to lure individuals into providing sensitive data such as personally identifiable information, banking and credit card details, and passwords. You see these a lot on Facebook. Facebook has a lot of write down your first love, write down your first dog, your first name of your first child, where were you married. All of this information that people point out on Facebook could actually be a phishing tactic that people are using in order to try and hack their accounts or their passwords. Weaknesses in cybersecurity technology continued. A denial of service attack, or a DOS attack, occurs when legitimate users are unable to access information systems, devices, or other networks due to a flood of information, packets going in second after second after second, bogging down the site so that legitimate users cannot access them. Password cracking. This is using tools like brute force in order to attack passwords or dictionary attack. These two types of tools will try and attack your passwords, leaving you vulnerable. Leapfrogging. Hackers obtain passwords or ID information to be used in a later attack. So they grab it now, use it later. They leap it over. Cyber weaknesses in security policy. The fast-paced world in which technology is advancing makes it hard for lawmakers to keep up with policies and updating them. Authentication and credentials. This will only work if the policies that are set forth are followed by everyone involved. This is the safest and easiest way to keep information safe. Continued. Training. It is pertinent that we make awareness training a need. This will ensure that this issue will not happen again due to negligence. Third parties. Attacks have been known to come from a third-party source, that is, an outside source from the summit. Proper and thorough evaluations of all vendors and businesses within the summit should be in place at all times. Contingency planning and risk assessment. Effective, efficient, and actionable plans need to be put in place and updated twice annually to avoid effects of any breaches that may happen. Attack vectors. Attack vectors are the methods that adversaries use to breach or infiltrate your network. Common attack vectors are compromised credentials, phishing, distributed denial of service or DDoS, misconfigurations, and ransomware. The vulnerability matrix. As you can see on the vulnerability matrix, it is broken down into several categories. You have risk, vulnerability, categorization, threat, date published and last revised, attack vector, impact and assessment, and mitigation. Using a vulnerability matrix will only benefit you going forward. You will understand the impact and assessments, which will tell you what is high impact, what is medium, low, and the mitigation tools we can use in order to keep these from happening in the future. Recommendations. On top of the list, we have to keep the equipment up to date. Once the equipment is no longer up to date, it is easy prey for malicious forces that may be within or even outside of the summit. We must keep the access control list up to date as well, and introduce stricter policies and procedures regarding passwords. We must introduce training for all employees about cybersecurity. This is crucial. We also must learn how to read a vulnerability assessment. This will protect us from the future by knowing what will impact us high, medium, or low, what could impact us, and there are actual ways we can mitigate these from happening. Also, the use of virus detection tools within the emails. We must get better at scanning our emails before we open them, and we must understand that we cannot click on any links via emails that we are not aware where they may lead. Now that we have gone over all of the agenda, are there any questions that I can take?